Good morning, everybody. My name is Asha. I'm a compulsive eater and bulimic, and I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from the gray sheet. I write them down. I commit them to a sponsor every day, and I don't eat in between no matter what. On February 2nd, I had 19 years of back-to-back abstinence. Um, I don't, my story is not unique in any way, but I felt fat from a very early age, and, especially, around things like ballerina classes and that kind of thing. I was always going to be too pudgy or too chubby to make a go of it. And I loved to dance. That was great, but it was never going to come to anything. So what was the point? At least that was the message I got. Um, I started dieting, I want to say around age 10. And it was something that was well sanctioned by my mother. She was also heavy, and the message was always that, if only she weren't heavy, her life would be better. And so I started pretty young, trying to watch my weight. By the time I was, mid-teenager, I had calorie counts memorized for every food that I ate on a regular basis. It takes up a lot of brain space. It's surprising that I could do schoolwork and still, function in other capacities. By the time I was 17, I had started bulimic behavior, and I wasn't very good at it at first. And that continued to be part of my story for accepting the 9 months that I was pregnant with my son. I was bulimic all the way until I gained, up to like 260 pounds when I was pregnant, and most of that didn't come off. I stayed around 220 for a long, long time after pregnancy. Eventually, I was started trying some of these low carb diets, and one thing I noticed was that they were easy to follow as long as I didn't break them. And I started to realize that, much like I had been taught alcoholism worked, where one drink, could take you out. I started to realize that one bite of anything with sugar or grains could take me out. I had always despaired because I was like, you can't stop eating, right? How are you going to cure an addictive process? Because I remember I was walking to school when I was 10 years old, realizing I had cravings, and I was compulsive about how I ate. And I knew that because my mom had been going to nursing school, and she had, she shared everything she learned with me. So I knew what alcoholism was at that point. Well, the best a 10-year-old can anyway. And I understood that if you had a slip, that often meant that you would go back into full-on addictive behavior. And for me, that was definitely true with food, but I didn't know what you did about it because I didn't realize that it was specifically the grains and the sugars that I was allergic to. By the time I was, let me think about this for a minute. I was 33 when I came into program. So I had done Atkins for a couple of years before that, and had been okay as long as I didn't take that first bite. But in retrospect, I far prefer gray sheet. I like having the vegetables. I love the vegetables, love my veggies. So Atkins went into a downward spiral after I had been at work one night, no different from any other night. And I binged on potluck foods that people had brought in. And so I was, kind of off to the races again. And I tried to get back on for like 6 months and couldn't do it. And the absolute bottom was my husband walking in on me practicing bulimic behavior. And that was just a real bottom. But that was also a moment of grace, because for the first time in my life, I realized that I was hurting someone else with my behavior. I'm sure it wasn't the first time I'd hurt somebody else, but it was the first time I realized that I had hurt somebody else. And I realized it pretty much right in that moment, how much pain I was causing him. Because it's really easy to convince myself, oh, I'm not hurting anybody but myself, but I am, because people care about me, big surprise. People, my presence in their lives makes a difference. And when I don't take care of myself, they care about that too. So I feel like also in retrospect, like that was a big turning point for me of even noticing that was huge. So I had heard about Gray Sheet because I'd been on this low carbohydrate forum, and one of the ladies in the addictions, there was an addictions sub thread, and I would go in there, and she only posted on that thread, and she would finish her post with IDENMW, which I didn't know what that meant. And then post a link to the Gray Sheet website. And when I found the Gray Sheet website, I was pretty excited, actually, because To me, the problem for me with OA had always been there's no food plan. Nobody can tell me how I'm supposed to eat so that I'm not eating addictively. I'm just supposed to figure it out. I mean, that didn't work for me for 30 some years. Why was it going to suddenly work for me when I went into a 12-step room? It didn't. I didn't even get to the point of working the steps because I was so demoralized by the food. So by the time that I got to Gray Sheet, I felt very deeply that I was powerless over food and that my life had become unmanageable and that only a higher power could restore me to sanity. I didn't know yet how to connect with that higher power or how that higher power could work in my life or how to ask for help. But I did know those first two things. And so, in a way, it was a leg up for me. I didn't have to have a debating society about whether or not I was allergic to grains and sugar. I had proven that to myself many, many, many times. So after that, humiliating, not just humbling, but humiliating experience of my husband walking in on me, I got back online. I found the phone bridge number. I got the phone bridge number from a GreySheeter and started attending meetings. And I kind of did because I didn't know exactly what the GreySheet was, but I did divide my food into 3 meals and weigh and measure how much I was eating and write it down until I got a sponsor. My day count, of course, doesn't start until I had a sponsor to call my food into, but I have had the blessing of not having a relapse since I started. And that doesn't mean I haven't made mistakes. Of course, I've made mistakes, but I call somebody. I get in touch with someone right away. If it's a mistake that can't be rectified, I turn it over. If it's a mistake that can be rectified, I ask what to do and I surrender to whatever that person tells me to do, which 99% of the time is not anything that would make me unhappy anyway. And it doesn't make me unhappy even when it might make me unhappy because it means I'm still abstinent. I guess abstinence is the most important thing in my life. I recently started a new job and it's incredibly stressful and it's so much busier than my last job, so much busier. My last job was I didn't really work. I don't know, because we just didn't have enough customers for what I do. And my job was shared with another person. So through a series of events, it had gotten to the point where neither one of us really worked very hard. And this job, I'm working a lot harder and I don't have any problem with that. But the other day I took a client on and it was 10:30 and I always eat lunch at 11 or 11:30. And that's because I eat breakfast. I even have permission to eat it early because I have to be at work at 6 a.m. some days. And so I'm sitting there and it's 10:30 and I'm like, do I try to eat my lunch before I see this client? Because I know it's going to take a while. And then I thought, no, I'm going to see him because I'll still be able to eat lunch after. And that's what I did. But it took 2 hours to sit down with this client and get done all the paperwork that we had to get done. And then I ate and it was late for me. It isn't good for me to wait to eat. I have a very set schedule with my food and it's the same almost every day. So I don't know how I'm going to navigate that. I know that I stay abstinent no matter what, even if that means I need to shut my door. I tell people I'm not available from this time to this time. Don't schedule clients with me, but there's boundaries. People, you have to really train people how to treat you. You have to really keep those boundaries. And then you have to not be available. You have to, and that's hard when you're first in a job. And I'm a little insecure about this job. They hired somebody else after they hired me who seems to be able to do my job and hers. And I don't love that. But she knows what our jobs are better than I do because she's done them before. And she's not sort of sharing. She's hyper competent and yay for the organization, but I want to be useful too, So anyway, I'm working my ass off, but sometimes I don't feel very useful. So I'm a little bit insecure about, taking that half hour to eat, but I can't function without Gray Sheet, and I actually literally can't function without a meal in the middle of the day. My brain doesn't do the job that it needs to do if I don't eat. And if I eat an hour late, it's not so great either. And that's what happened. I ate an hour later than my usual time. So that's something I'm sort of figuring out. I've only been in this position officially for a couple of weeks. And my old job ended on a sour note. After 7.5 years of it being, you know, great, being a place that was very nurturing and supportive for me, it ended on a very sour note. So
that's 10.
Oh, thank you so much. So, but let me get away from the negativity. Continual learning to set boundaries, and that's something that I had gotten pretty good at, and I think I probably still am pretty good at, but I just got to remember how to do it. I gotta take my space. I gotta make my food on the weekends so that I don't have to think about it during the week. I gotta be on top of the planning, preparing, and protecting. That doesn't go away. And I'm not even sure I want it to. I mean, the stuff that I do for Gray Sheet is so much a habit in my life right now. I don't know what my life would be without it. So I love my food. My food is gorgeous. I have my my Gray Sheet favorites that I eat more often than others. And it's so abundant. We get so much food. It's awesome. I've learned to cook veggies in a way that's relatively easy and yet incredibly tasty. I never knew how to do any of that before. I never made vegetables for myself. Why would I do that? I mean, before Gray Sheet, but now it's like, I can't imagine not eating vegetables. I feel sorry for people who don't eat vegetables because my vegetables are so good. I love them. It's a highlight of my life. I do a daily 10 step, which consists of 5 things I'm grateful for, 5 things that I did good yesterday, 5 things that were good about, in my actions yesterday, 1 or 2 things that didn't go so well, called glitches, and then, and anywhere from 2 to 4 goals that I have for the coming day. And that's every day. And then I write 3 pages every day. I've been doing the goals and glitches and good and gratitude every day for a long time. And I added the 3 pages of writing last September. And that's been really good to process things and not ruminate so much on things and kind of get my head straight. So, and take out the garbage, I call it, taking out the garbage on a daily basis, right? It's much better than letting it pile up for years. It's time for me to do another 4th step. I'm actually going to do it in a sister program that I just started working last July. But my 4th steps are everything. They're not like just dedicated to the substance and how I abuse the substance. They're all of the things that I'm angry about, all the character defects, everything that is sludge in my mind and heart, all the sludge. Getting rid of that. And so I'm looking forward to it, and also sometimes feel tired. But I got to keep peeling away the layers of the onion because things fester in me. I'm angry. Well, resentful is probably a little bit better word. I'm resentful about a lot of things. I'm angry about what happened in my last job. And sad. I'm sad about a lot of things, but that's not, sadness lives next door to anger and resentment. So it's all one big ball of yuck, and I want to give it to God continually. And God is absolutely in my life and directing me in certain directions. Sometimes I'm kind of bad at listening, but I try. I really do try. And sometimes the moment to moment listening is a lot harder than the big picture listening for me. But I try. I try to put the effort in, and kind of that's where my daily writing comes in. At the end of my daily writing, I sign up by saying, thank you, God, for everything. Yours in service, Asha. And that reminds me what my primary purpose is today, is to be of use in my world. And I can only do that if I stay abstinent. So that makes abstinence my primary purpose, and to help others, and particularly other people who are sick and suffering in any way, really. So thanks for the timer. Thanks for everybody who's counting days. Congratulations. And everybody who's had recent anniversaries, congratulations. And we just keep doing this no matter what. Thank you.